Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We're waiting for people to show up on our live coaching. We're still on Maui.
Dum Dum is showing up
Yeah,
again.
great. It's great to see all the regulars coming back again. I've really been enjoying these coaching sessions, and it's so cool to see people coming back every weekend. And I feel like I'm really getting to know you guys, and it's great with the footage that everyone's sending in. I'm getting to know your sailing, and we're really creating a cool community. I'm really happy with this.
Toby.
Hey, Toby. Mark. Yeah,
See
welcome,
you.
guys. This is great. So, while we wait for more people to show up and tune in, say hi. Tell me what you were doing this week. Were you sailing? If you were sailing, what were the conditions like? What were you working on? If you weren't sailing, what were you up to?
And I'm curious if you're still on lockdown.
Yeah, are you still on lockdown?
I know some beaches are reopening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I mean, great news here, Maui. Hokipa Beach Park is.
Yeah, the beach is
again.
opened again on Maui, so Hokipa's
Today.
fully open now. So windsurfing has been possible this whole time, but now the beach is actually open as well.
So now we can park at the beach.
Yeah, park at the beach. It's a lot nicer. Instead of running across the highway.
Right.
I'm still off the water, so like I said last week, so I injured my knee. So the results from the MRI came back, and I have a complex tear in my meniscus, which is really the most severe part of my injury. I have some other stretched ligaments and a small tear in my MCL, but the meniscus tear is the most serious part, and so I see another doctor on Tuesday to see if I'll need surgery for that, which is I probably do. So until then, I'm off the water. So keep sending me your videos. It gives me something to do, something to think about. I can keep giving you guys feedback. I set up a Facebook group, so it's just Graham Ezzy's Windsurf Coaching Community. The link is in my Instagram profile, and it's great. I'm so grateful you guys have already started joining and posting things and discussing on there.
So interesting.
I really like the idea of having a place where people can post videos, I can comment, where other people can see the comments. You guys can also comment because there's a lot of collective wisdom in there, so everyone has their own tips and their own little secrets for each move that have helped them. So I really want to create a place where we can all share this knowledge, share these secrets, and I think that will really, really help. Let me just read some of these comments. It's so great. I'm so grateful you guys keep showing up. Sounds like you got there's been some really good conditions. How do we wave? That's not right.
You already waved.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like people are able to go back in the water in some places. Some places are still locked down.
Looks like France is still on lockdown. Is it UK on lockdown? Like on beach lockdown?
I think it is. I think it is. Yeah.
I think Spain will reopening the beaches next week. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I read something. I read something on Philip Custer's last post or something.
Okay. Trying to train the fast tack on the grass, Mark is saying. That's actually a good place to train it. I've given some tips on the live coaching about fast tacks in the past, and we recorded a little video as well about fast tacks, which I'll upload. And you can really train the fast tacks on the grass. It's so much just about getting the hand movement and about getting the foot movement. So we're not going to go into that today. We're going to review the videos that people posted on the Facebook group and focus our coaching there. But I will release a fast tacking video, and then I hope that helps. And keep sending me questions, keep sending me footage. I can't stress this enough, that the best way to learn for windsurfing is to review footage. So the first step of that is that you see yourself, and you'll learn so much just from seeing yourself. And then the second step of that is my review or someone else's review. It doesn't have to be me. It could even be just friends or other pros or coaches. But having someone else look at that footage and give you feedback is huge. It's really monumental. And there's something that happens that's more than just having someone watch you sailing and then give you feedback, because when you're able to see it yourself, you can really internalize what's going on and what needs to change.
Right.
Paul, we've been working on some footage. You've since I've been out of the water, I've had some time and I've filmed Paul a bit. What do you think about that? So like, what surprised you the most about seeing yourself, and then how did that help with the coaching or not help with the coaching, and what did that do for your mind on the water?
Honestly, it's like it's so like an open minder, like but it's insane, like because you're thinking sometimes you're jumping like so high, or the wave was so steep, or you're doing like good turns and everything, and then afterwards you look at the footage and you think, okay, that's tiny, or that's okay. So it's really like to see your like, I think like it's really one of the best tools in windsurfing, and like maybe like in sports in general, but especially in windsurfing, to see your own like yourself on a screen, because you really can relate to the movement. You can really like, you have that wave in your mind, you have the button turn in your mind, you have that jump in your mind and everything, and then you see, oh look, you can adjust this or that, and that is so, I don't know, it's like it's completely changing the game. And I honestly, I wished I did that like 10 years ago already, like properly, you know. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for sure I have some
Mm-hmm.
footage from myself like 10 years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
I never used like the video footage like I use it now.
Yeah. So
And that is it.
yeah. So film yourself. No matter what you do with the footage, whether you're getting it reviewed, film yourself. It'll help you learn. We've got a great question from Sammy about big waves. So I'm gonna try and post this to the chat. All right, so there you guys have to turn your screen to see the question. Um, so I don't know, Sammy, if we can read the full question. It might be a little bit too long. Um, I'm getting cut off after the A there. Um, but the basic question is about big waves and survival tips in big waves. So big waves is a lot of fun, right? Windsurfing in waves, especially big waves, is one of the biggest joys in the sport. But there's a lot to know so that you're comfortable in that situation. Because the number one thing is that you don't want to panic, right? And the easiest way, or the kind of the only way not to panic, is to be prepared, right? And so there's knowledge and experience that combine to give you the confidence not to panic in whatever situation you're in. So Sammy's question, I believe, because Instagram is cutting it off. So Sammy, post the full question in the Facebook group, and we'll have more discussion about it. Other people can give their tips, but I'm going to give now my answer to what I think you're asking, which is what to do with whitewaters. So when you have a whitewater coming and you're in the water, I'm a firm believer that you almost never want to let go of your gear. Your gear floats, it's visible, and it's your safety vessel to get you out of whatever situation you're in. So you don't want to be bailing on your gear in the majority of situations. Of course, there are some situations where that it's just too radical, and then you've got to let go of your gear, but you want to hold on as hard as you can. And the way that you position the gear to the whitewater helps you do that. So you want your mast to be pointing into the whitewater. So if this is the tip of the mast and this is your board, you want to position it so that it's facing into the whitewater, and you want to get it as low as possible. And so in big waves, what I'm doing when I'm in the water and there's a big whitewater coming, is I'm trying to get the mast down and then drive the board under. So I'm almost doing a duck dive with the whole rig. And there's different techniques to do that. So first of all, you make sure that the mast is pointing directly into the whitewater. If it's not pointing into the whitewater, you're in a situation where the rig is going to want to flip. And that's one, a lot harder to hold on to. Two, it's a situation that you're more likely to break a mast. So when the mast is pointing, so the mast is pointing this way, your board is here, and the whitewater is coming here, the rig is going to want to flip, which then it is not where you want to be, because it's a lot more radical. You're being thrown around wherever you are in the rig. There's a lot more motion. And then if the mast hits the bottom, there's a possibility that it breaks, right? Because you're then putting pressure on the mast. And what happens if you have rocks or coral is that the mast tip can get stuck in the rocks, and then it can break. You know, masts. I'm really confident in my mast. They're super strong, but it doesn't matter how strong it is. If you put a mast stuck in a rock and have all the pressure of the rig going against it, it's gonna break. So it's really important to point the mast into the whitewater. And so then what I like to do is I stand on the tip of my sail, on the tip of the mast, driving it underwater, right? So again, this pencil represents the mast. This is the tip of the mast. The board is here. So I'm standing on this, driving it underwater, and maybe holding onto the boom as I'm pushing with my legs to get the sail down, and then swimming down on the rig and driving the mast even deeper down underwater and trying to get the board even below the surface of the water by the time the whitewater is hitting. And there's different techniques for that. So sometimes I'll hold on with one hand on the boom and the other hand on the mast, and I'm driving it down that way. And that also gives me a really good grip to hold on, because like I said, you don't want to let go. You really want to hold on to your gear, especially when the waves are big, because your gear, it floats. It's a vehicle to get you out of that whatever situation, and it's visible. So you don't want to let go unless it's an absolute last resort.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, so
I use that, like,
yeah,
from the point on that you told me that, it's like, it helps you a lot. I mean, I ended up on the rocks anyway, but it's like, it's really helpful, actually.
yeah,
And you're feeling much better, and you gain more confidence after that, because what happened, like, last week, I was like in that situation, and my rig was like floating on the rocks and a keeper, and I was alone. Like, I was left with my gear, and then you see like the like the wave sections, like, and you think, okay, so what is my opinion now? Like, I can go over the rocks or I swim, but I felt so lost without my gear.
Right.
Like, it's like a vehicle that brings you out, and I think sometimes we also forget that, like, because we're feeling so confident when we are on our board and with our sails, so it pulls us out, no problem. And that moment, then when you just like swim without your gear, you realize how tiny and how lost you are. So,
right.
I swam for a long time, and then I made it back, and I mean, my gear was okay, but anyway. That is a great
Yes,
tip.
thank you for the question, Sammy. That's a really great question. Post it in the Facebook group. We'll get more discussion going there. The other side of that question is dealing with fear in big waves and comfort. Paul has been really pushing his comfort levels here on Maui. I mean, he's a very good sailor, but Maui can be really intimidating, and we get really powerful waves. Paul, can you talk a little bit about what the challenges have been, and then what you've done to deal with those challenges of dealing with waves that are scarier than what you get on the Baltic Sea?
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, like, let's call it, it's not my right side, right? So I'm really learning kind of not from the beginning, but getting used to.
So Paul is used to sailing with wind from the left, and Maui has predominantly wind from the right. Yes. And so it's, as we all know, that's really hard. It's like, you know, learning to write with your other hand, or it's even harder than that.
Right.
So tell us more.
So So first of all, like getting the confidence of like hitting the lip or hitting the waves or just riding the waves. I mean, in the beginning was just like, oh, how do I get out here? You know, because I'm so used to the wind from the left, and I have no problem to go out in big waves when the wind is from the left because I can float, jump, whatever, loop, anyway, but not on this side. So, and one thing is like on a keeper, you have that strong current. You have like so many good sailors out there. You have the strong current, good sailors, the rocks, and that there's a shallow water, the reef, big waves, fast waves, and most of the time it's like when a keeper is like setting up, like how a keeper is setting up, like on a good normal day with a swell, it's like you can't see. It's just like waves, beautiful, amazing waves, but they scared you a little bit because you can't see the horizon. You know, like,
Right.
that is sometimes that is like the most different to the Baltic Sea, and it's so nice when you're on the wave and riding it, but just from the start and from the beginning. So yeah, I'm kind of building slowly my confidence here and building bricks. I'm trying to watch. Trying.
So the answer then, so you're just taking it step by step, right? So
Yeah.
you're one step at a time. You're out on the water
Right.
every day trying to
Yeah.
accomplish a little bit more,
Right.
and that's the way you're dealing with the
Right.
fear, right, of these different
Right.
conditions.
So I mean, like first of all, I'm like how I did is like I'm not surfing the first wave from the
Right.
set. Like I'm almost trying to surf like the um, last wave of
Right,
the set. I
right.
mean, it's not the best wave, definitely not the best wave, but if I get pounded or rushed, I have time to get out. And I'm also trying not to surf the biggest waves, you know, and I'm trying to be really aware how the wave is setting up. So sometimes it's super bumpy. So I had a situation like I was on a big, huge wave, but the wave was super bumpy, and Ricardo was on the way outside, and I was on the big wave, and he was like, "Hey!" And I was saying, and I was deciding, "Oh, I exit the wave," and he was like, "Oh, what are you doing? It's a good wave." I say,
Yeah.
"Yeah, sorry, I'm so sorry. I
Yeah.
know I messed it up, but it's too bumpy for my level, you know." And he was like laughing or something, and all good at the end. But yeah, to
So it's good to have the comfort to know when to kick out of waves, when to chicken jibe. So chicken jibing, and for those that don't know, is when you turn around. If you're going out and it looks like you're not going to be able to get out, you can turn around to come back in instead of trying to get through whatever big waves are coming in.
and one good tip is to watch the pro guys. And what we did like a couple of times is that you kind of hook me on the wave and tell me, go now, like, or go more upwind. What I did also like a couple of times, I was just like surfing or sailing your path, you know, like your way of sailing. So to get into the right
Yeah,
position.
I think this is really useful for everyone. So it doesn't matter how good you are, where you are, you want to be paying attention to what the good sailors are doing in a spot. And so I do this wherever I am. So if I'm in Tenerife, I'm watching where Danny Bruce is catching waves, where he's riding them, where he's setting up. If I'm in Denmark, I watch what the local guys are doing there. And there's a lot to learn from looking at the good locals and seeing where they're catching waves, what waves they're catching, what their rhythm looks like. And that can really help get you in sync with the ocean, get you on the right waves and in the right spot, which then gives confidence, right? Because once you have that foundation, everything's working your way. It's setting up for you. I think that learning, so one of the things that Paul said I found really interesting, so he's on his opposite tack, right? So he grew up windsurfing with wind from the left, and now he's sailing a lot with wind from the right. And that is hard. It's really hard, and it can be uncomfortable because suddenly all these things that you can do, you can't do, right? But I think it's really important for learning, and it's important to remember that most learning is uncomfortable. And so if you want to learn, if you want to improve, you have to go through a certain amount of discomfort. And so I have a few things to say about that. One is that I think you should search for that discomfort. So you want to look for that. And so that means, if you're planning a windsurfing vacation once this quarantine is over, and you always go to Gran Canaria, and maybe you always sail in Vison or on the Baltic Sea, and you're used to wind from the left, maybe go to Portugal. Try somewhere with wind from the right. And you'll have a more difficult vacation because you're suddenly learning the sport again. But you'll learn so much in that week, and your brain will be piecing together parts of windsurfing. And then when you get back to your home spot and you're windsurfing in conditions that you're comfortable in, that you're used to, you will be so much better. Having that multi-side approach really helps your brain understand what's happening. So, for example, like if I'm sailing all summer in the Canary Islands, and I come back to Hawaii with wind from the other side, and I'm jumping for the first time in 6 months on this side, I'm often jumping better because it's just the way that the brain works, is you're understanding the moves more completely, and you're getting this much more advanced sort of muscle memory, body knowledge. So I really recommend looking for that discomfort, sailing your bad side. The next point is a little bit tough maybe to hear, but crashing is learning. So if you want to learn, you have to expect to crash. And as a way to get used to that, it might even be worth having 10 minutes every session where it's dedicated to crashing. So you know you're going to crash. And I don't mean in an out of control way. I don't mean in a way that you're going to hurt yourself. But it's trying things that are completely different that you've never tried before. Maybe it's carving 360s. Maybe it's wave riding kloof first. And be okay with falling. Be okay with crashing. In fact, try to crash. So you're pushing it to the limit where you will crash. Maybe it's even just on your jibes, you're getting the sail so low that you're trying to crash on them. And just doing that for 10 minutes, not the whole session, but getting used to that feeling of going over the edge, or going over the balance point to where you're crashing, because that's the place where learning happens. And then once you're comfortable in that space, then you go and you try the back loops, you try the bottom turns, you try everything else. But you're in that learning mindset where you're okay with crashing, you're okay with falling. Because a lot of times we have this desire, I have it myself, and it's something I have to fight, of wanting to do what's comfortable and not wanting to fall, right? And so in order to learn, though, you have to get past that, and you have to be okay with falling. And it can really help to do that crashing. We've got one question I'm going to try and read. And then the last point to that is, because falling, crashing, learning, all of that is uncomfortable, I think that you can try to balance it out. So, okay, I'm going to have half an hour of my hour session where I'm really trying to learn, and I'm crashing, and it's uncomfortable. But then after that, I'm just going to focus on having fun. I'm going to do the things I just love to do on the water. Maybe it's heli tacks, maybe it's just backside aerials, maybe it's jibes, planing jibes, carving jibes, maybe it's just blasting, going fast, maybe it's just doing high jumps, whatever it is. Just do that to have fun and balance the earlier part of the session or the later part of the session. I like to do the learning in the beginning, because then you're fresh and you're motivated, and then you can have the fun part at the end, and you're left with that good feeling. And I think having that balance can really help. And then the other side is to learn how to love that feeling of falling, learn how to love that feeling of crashing, the feeling of learning, the feeling of trying to figure out the puzzle pieces, how they fit together, so that when you're crashing, and even if you're not making the moves, you're having a pleasure in it. And so one of the ways to do that is to really look at your progress. You're saying, okay, I'm not landing the back loops yet, but now I have a lot more control on the way down, and that's a success, and that's something you can be happy about. And so you break it down into these little pieces, and that can help make that whole crashing learning process more enjoyable and more fun.
One thing I would love to add on this is,
Yeah.
I found, like, more helpful for me if I want to like appreciate my session, to say instead of like going surfing for 2 hours or for an hour, to say, okay, today I want to ride 3 good waves, like to make like to have 3 good waves. So, and if I achieve that goal, I'm happy and I'm super grateful for everything. It's not like, you know what I mean with that? Like it's like I'm really hunting like now. Okay, it's not about like getting 20 waves or learn 20 different things or whatever. Just like I want to ride 3 good waves in my session today, and if I achieve that, that's perfect. And one thing I want to add like about like that to brain sides, and that is like what I wrote in the Facebook group. And guys, if you're not on the Facebook group, I think that's like the bad thing ever could happen for us is that Graham is opening that a Facebook group and is like teaching us and giving us advice on
Facebook group link is in my profile. It's just Graham Ezzy's windsurf coaching community, and the link is in my profile. So join there. All these questions can be asked there, and we discuss them there. And it's a bit of an easier format to discuss such a variety of questions.
Yeah. So he was asking like again like what is the name of it? Maybe slowly.
Yeah. So it's Graham Ezzy's windsurf coaching community, and the link is in my Instagram profile.
It's so great, really. There are already like a bunch of people. I didn't count, but it's,
Yeah, we're already getting stuff posted, questions asked, video to review.
Yeah.
So it's already starting.
So I wrote something on this, like under my post, on the comments, and it's like, you know, like working on both brain sides, it's like kind of a shortcut because, and I can just like speak for myself and like for my personal experience, but like I was surfing like with wind from the left for a long time, and I'm definitely like getting like bad habits on my sailing, on my wave riding, on my jumps and stuff like this. And actually like surfing on the other side, like wind from the right, like it's like a fresh start. And I can start like again like again and again without all the bad habits.
Right.
Like
Yeah, that's a great point. So when you're trying something new wind direction, new spot, it's an opportunity to get rid of your bad habits, to get out of the rut, to get off the plateau. And that's incredibly useful for all of us. It's so easy to get stuck doing the same bad habits over and over. And the only way to get out of those habits is to change something, to shock the system. And so changing the wind direction, going somewhere, starboard tack or port tack, whatever the opposite is of what you're used to, is a really easy way to do that. And it's a great thing for your sailing.
Like the other day I was like, and that's a random information, but the other side I was like checking the internet on and description what port tack is and what starboard tack is.
Okay.
Didn't find anything. So I don't know if everyone
Port tack is port is left, starboard is right. I don't know. That might be opposite. So yeah, port is left, starboard is right. And
but
so
does it mean the wind from the left, or is it like
yeah, so it means port tack means the wind is from the left side, and then starboard tack means the wind is from the right side. And so for windsurfing, if you have your left hand forward, it's port tack, and your right hand forward, it's starboard tack. And so when we refer to a spot, it's the tack that you're going off the beach. So here we go off the beach with our right hand forward, the wind comes from the right, so it's starboard tack. In Pozo, the wind comes from the left, we have our left hand forward when we go out, so it's a port tack spot. And yeah, so that's port and starboard. All right, so we got a couple questions that I'll go through quickly. Again, post them in the Facebook group and we'll have more discussion on them. And then let's get into the footage that was posted on the Facebook group. So we have a question from, here I can post it into the group. So we have a question from Eric about tips for onshore wave sailing for beginner. So this is a very general question and there's a lot to say. So again, post it in the group and we can have a much more complex discussion. But what I will say now is I think it can be really useful to focus on backside riding in onshore conditions. So frontside riding is obviously a very important part of windsurfing in onshore conditions and down the line conditions, but it's much more difficult when the wind is onshore to get that speed and to get the timing, because your bottom turn is so much longer, because you're facing upwind when you start the bottom turn, and you have to do this really long bottom turn, which then means that your timing is a lot more difficult, because you're having to see farther in the future or predict farther in the future than if you're going down the line and it's right next to you, right? So one way around that is to focus on backside riding, because with backside riding it's the opposite. You're facing, you know, if the wave is here and you're going upwind onshore, you can see what's happening, and you're a lot closer to what the wave is doing, so it's easier with the timing. But by doing that and focusing on really getting inside the lip, so focusing on doing backside aerials, focus on getting the board inside the lip on your turns, and focus on, you know, getting the sail down, all these different aspects of backside riding. And I can discuss this more on the Facebook group for those details. But focusing on the backsides will help everything else, because it teaches you the wave knowledge, it teaches you the board knowledge, it teaches you how the wave is working, the dynamics of how it interacts with the board, and then that knowledge can be applied to going front side once you're really comfortable going backside. So that's my tip, is to really focus on going backside. Focus on using the rails of your board going backside. Feel the carve. So don't just go straight, don't go flat with the board. Really focus on carving. You don't have to do really radical turns, but get that rail engaged and feel the board turning on the wave. And that's the start. So for someone beginning with wave sailing with onshore conditions, focus on going backside. All right, we've got one more question, then we're going to get into the footage from the Facebook group. All right, how do we transition the weight between your feet during the bottom turn and the top turn? This is something that you learn kind of naturally. There's not, because it really is a lot of feeling, because it depends what the wave is doing. So what I would recommend in the beginning is having most of your weight always on your back foot. So having a lot of weight on the back foot in the bottom turn, and then also in the cutback. And then you don't have to transition so much. And so I think that's a good way in the beginning, because you can do good bottom turns with a lot of weight on your back foot. Otherwise, it's a lot to do with your hips and your upper body as well, and that really guides where the weight is. So when you're starting the bottom turn, if you're doing a really front foot bottom turn, your shoulder is turning into the turn, your hips are turning into the turn, and then as you're coming up the wave, you kind of like unweighting a little bit, so you're a bit neutral as the rails are switching, and then you start turning again in the other direction with your upper body, so with your shoulders, with your hips, and then that puts the weight on the back foot. I think it's a really good habit to get into paying attention to what your upper body is doing when you're bottom turning and cutting back. So make sure that you're looking, so you're changing your head with where you want to go. Turn your shoulders, turn your hips into the turn. That will help get the board engaged, and it will help with the weight distribution as well. All right, we got one more question in the comments, and then we're going to the Facebook group. So have waveboards changed a lot in 10 years? Yes, I would say yes, they have. You know, there's always things happening in the wave development, and there's new things tried out. You know, we've gone a lot shorter and wider in the waveboards, I think, the last 10 years, and the boards I'm riding now are really a lot faster than what was around 10 years ago, but still able to turn really well. It's more of an art than a science developing boards, and so sometimes we hit a little gold mine, and we've got some great boards, but they're always changing.
I can also agree on that, and I have a perspective from the outside of the industry.
Yeah.
And I want to say, like when it comes down to 10 years, definitely there are definitely some changes, and like changes you will really field, and I would say that's more likely there's a big change in 10 years than in 1 year. So
Yeah. So while there might not be big changes year to year, if you're looking on a 10-year span, a decade span, then yes, yes, there are big changes.
And also, like, sorry.
Yeah.
So I have a custom board like made from Keith Sabul last year, and that was like really a game changer for me. I mean, I love the production boards. I have production boards, but a custom, that's also a game changer for a surfer. Really, it is. I mean, and you have to experience it to believe it. That's, I think, like, it's not like the production board is bad, because sometimes the production board fits perfect to your to yourself, but
Yeah, I think there's a lot, there's a lot you can do with setting up your gear, so you can change your fins, change your foot straps, and you can change your mass track position. You can get a really customized feeling with your board. You're looking to buy a new board, shoot me a message. I can help you figure out what kind of board to get. Shoot me a message, post in the Facebook group, and we'll go from there. All right, so let's start going through the footage. I'm going to quickly talk about tacking to answer Andrew's question as we're transitioning to the Facebook group footage. So you see most pros tacking on the top of a wave, of an incoming wave, for a couple of reasons. There are reasons for that.
that reminds me of a story.
Yeah, so you get a bit of extra wind coming up the wave, so you get a bit of updraft. So it can be, especially if the wind is light, it can be a good place to tack. And then also it sets you up to catch the wave behind. So especially in places where the waves are moving really fast, you want to have a bit of room to get ready and get up to speed to catch the next wave that's coming in. So for example, somewhere like Jaws, Piahi, where the waves are moving really fast, we'll often jive in front of the one before the one that we want to catch. And so you pick up speed from the one, but you can't stay with it. And so you go off, and then you get the one behind it, which can be a little bit tricky with priority issues, but because everyone's doing that, it more or less works out. But yeah, so tacking on the top of the wave is generally a pretty good place to tack for catching waves. All right, so let's get into the Facebook footage.
You will
I think I can hold it, yeah. Or here, one.
No, you can hold it. Just want to assist you with that.
So
That is a group.
yeah, so here's the Facebook group. So here's
stuff going on there.
here's a video from Sebastian, and so he's got a question about back loops. And so here's his video. And so this is really a great attempt. You can see that on his landing, so he comes around and he's landing. I've got a little bit of reflection. He's landing almost perfectly. He comes down and then just loses the backhand and falls in. So there's a few things that I will say that will help, and for people who have been following the coaching, these might sound familiar because there are a few main things to focus on in the back loop and a few very common mistakes. So as Sebastian takes off, he very soon goes into the back loop rotation. So what I want to see, which will help have more control when he's coming down, is to split the back loop into 3 distinct parts. And so when he's taking off, to really focus first on just going up and getting some height, and pausing that 1 second, that half a second, to get some height without starting the rotation will give him more control when he is coming down. Because like this, he's rotating through the whole loop right from the point he's taking off, and that makes it a lot harder to fine tune and to control the rotation. Then the next point is, so here at the top, So we have his helmet cam so we can see where he's looking. He's looking between his hands. He needs to be looking here. So his head needs to be turned this way, turned in the direction of where he's rotating. It's so important. I can't stress it enough that where your head looks is everything, especially in the back loop. So you really want, when you come up to the top, to turn with your head and really spot your landing. So we've got here this little comparison from last week's live coaching here. So you can see this is a great submission from Dom, also doing a good back loop. And then here's an example from me. So you really, really want to be looking with your head over your shoulder. And so that's will really help with the back loop. It helps you to know where you are in the rotation. It helps, why is that not? And it helps give you control. So those are my two main tips for this, is you want to come up more, so focus on breaking the back loop up into stages, and then really look with the head to spot the landing. And that will give you a lot more control coming down. And then like you're coming in really perfect, but it's a bit of a surprise. It's a bit sudden because you haven't been spotting the landing. You don't know exactly when you're gonna land. And so then suddenly you just hit the water and then sail fills up with wind and the clue opens up. Whereas if you first focus on getting a little bit more height and then really look with your head, you'll come down with a lot more control and be able to really land these perfectly. All right, so we've got more back loops from Mark. And Mark has been windsurfing for a long time, and he does really good back loops. I mean, so this is a perfect back loop. Great job, Mark. Perfect back loop. So his question was about getting more height on the jump. So he's already doing really great loops and rotations, but he wants to go higher. He wants to improve them. So one tip, again, and it's pretty similar to what we just said, is you want to break the back loop up into these distinct parts. And so Mark is starting the rotation pretty early off the wave. And so what I want to see to get more height is to focus, instead of coming straight into the rotation, to focus just on getting height first and really break the loop down into these three distinct parts of going up, turning at the apex, and then coming down, spotting and landing. And we can see here, he's looking over his shoulder, so he's doing a good job of spotting the landing, even though it's kind of difficult to see with this footage. And then he comes in very clean. So I want to see breaking the loop down into these three distinct parts. So here's another clip, another loop. So again, great back loops, Mark. You're really doing a good job with these. So this one has a bit more wait time before he starts rotating. One thing I'd want to see though is instead of looking here, I want him looking up here, and that will help to get more height. And then to sheet in more. So if you're bringing this hand in, sheeting in, and you're pushing up with the front hand, that will really help with getting that initial height, with getting that takeoff. And then you just look over the shoulder. So here he could be doing more work with his head coming down, which will then give more control. So he lands kind of flat, and if he'd been looking over the shoulder, he would have had more control coming down. But again, great job landing them. So, oops. So here we've got another example. So good landing like in the other ones. So kind of the same thing. So I want to see sheeting in more and pushing up with the front hand more, and that'll help to get that initial height and really focus on breaking the rotation into those 3 steps. And then at the top, really using the head to spot the landing. So here he's looking, but he could be looking more. So he's really looking at his front hand where he wants the head to be looking here where he's gonna land. And that will help get a nice nose first landing. So because he's looking here, he's kind of stopped rotating. And what that does, it's gonna mean that he lands flatter. So he's gonna do a flattish landing because the rotation has kind of stopped, and then the sail's kind of full of wind when he hits. But it's still a completed back loop. So all right, these are some forwards. All right, there's another back loop. Again, so these are great. So Mark, you've got a great rotation. For the height, again, so you're kind of doing the same thing every time, which works. So I understand why you keep doing it. But to get more height, you want to sheet in more, look straight up into the sky, and push your front hand kind of straight and up to get that initial height, and focus on breaking the rotation into 3 steps. So you're going up, you turn with your head, and you spot your landing coming down. And the more you spot your landing, the easier your landings will be, the softer they'll be. You'll have more control, you'll be able to get in the right position. Paul has been learning back loops now on this tack, and he's landed some as well. Paul, can you give us your thoughts on what has helped you and what hasn't helped you? What has been good, what hasn't been good in your back loop journey?
Definitely like wave selection, like also like on which on which section I try to hit the wave, like where I jump off, because I want to really hit the steepest section of the wave to get that extra height on my wave, on my jump, on my back loop, and breaking it down into like the 2-3 pieces to just like go straight up, work with your backhand. And again, like, and you can penetrate and stress that topic over and over again, just like use your head, looking over your shoulder. Because actually, like, looking over your shoulder down to your landing means also that you have to like bring your hip more to the boom and more to the sail. So if we can go back to your to the split screen of your back loop and the back loop of Dom Dom.
All right, I looked for this. You keep talking.
Okay. Yeah. So here we go. So you can actually see he wouldn't like Dom Dom had like he has no chance to look over his shoulder. I mean, it's really complicated for him relate to his body position to look over his shoulder now, because you have to like sheet in more. Like you see the difference with his your hips and his hip. Like your hip is more like closer to the sail, and he's like more hanging down, kinda. And you need actually like this position to look over your shoulder, and this helps you at all, like with your board position and with your sail position. So if he wants to sheet in, because he's actually like doing like this, it's like hard now, like kind of this, and you do more like this, to really spot your landing.
And so when you're,
you know what I mean,
looking with your head like that, and you're really looking at where you're going to land, so it's really spotting your landing. It's not just looking over your shoulder, it's spotting your landing. It's finding the piece of water where you're going to land, and that sets everything else up. It sets your body up, it sets the sail up. The one last tip I'd give, because I know some people are worried about getting injured or worried about crashing, and that can hold them back from going high, is to really just bend your legs. And so keep your core engaged and keep your legs tight, and that puts you into this compact little ball, and it's a pretty safe position to be in. And on the back loops, it's pretty hard to hurt yourself like that. So stay compact, tuck your legs in. It helps. Tucking your legs in helps with almost every jump, so it's good to get in that habit. And if you're having difficulty with that, work on your core strength, doing tucks and different kind of sit-ups to work on pulling your legs in, because that can really help with the rotation and also with the safety. Okay, so we've got one more clip, and it is from Paul himself. And so
Using your sail.
yeah, so Paul went out on my sail. So this first section, so there's a lot that I really like here. So he's setting up well. He comes into his bottom turn well. He's got he's got the rail engaged. He's got a lot of carving going on. So what I see here that he needs to be doing is focusing more on completing his bottom turn. So he's doing a great bottom turn, but he kind of stops about here. So now he's already thinking about the cutback, and that's understandable because he sees the top of the wave and he's coming towards it. But actually he's got all this distance to travel before he gets there. So what I want to see is I want to see the board to stay engaged in that bottom turn until he gets up onto the wave. So here he's really just on the bottom of the wave. So this is a point to be pushing hardest, not to stop pushing. So even though he can see now the point where he wants to turn, it's not the time to stop pushing. It's the time actually to push even more. So you want to really think about keeping engaged on that rail. So the bottom turn starts and it continues through the bottom of the wave and back up the wave. So you want to make sure you're still pressing until you're going uphill again, at least. And then this is still great. And my only comment here is I think this is not an aerial section. So he goes for an aerial, and the form, I mean, there's a lot that looks really good here. So I think it comes down to wave selection. And as I've said before, wave selection is really the most important part of wave sailing. Timing, wave selection, makeup, wave placement, make up almost everything. So if you can catch the right waves, start riding them at the right time, and be in the right place, that is 90% of good wave sailing. In fact, it's impossible to do good wave sailing without that. All right, so there's that aerial. Now let's look at the next wave. So this is good setup, goes for the aerial, and then goes out the back. So there's a lot that I like here. Again, this is the right section. This is good timing. This is good. The reason that he's going out the back is that he's looking this way when in fact he needs to be looking somewhere here to keep his momentum traveling forward. But by looking back and thinking about coming back here somewhere, then the momentum is stopping. The sort of the aerial is kind of forced into a bit of a rotation rather than a straight forward jump, and that's what's keeping him from coming back inside the wave. And so what could be really useful is to really find a spot down here to look at when he's taking off. Again, it's the head. The head is so important where you're looking. So if he's looking here, then at this point he's traveling to here rather than where he's looking here. He starts rotating, and then that rotation kills the speed, kills the power, and
That's the same wave.
leads him out the back. So this is the same wave again. So here we've got another one now. All right, good setup. Okay, so this is nice. I like this turn. So we've got good bottom turn, good setup. So this is great for getting more comfortable with carving and more comfortable with turns on waves, and then you just build from this. So you go and you find the steeper and steeper waves, the bigger and bigger sections. But this is a great setup. So what I would like to see differently, if we were to do this differently, is to set up a little bit on a different place in the wave. So if he's dropping in here, he could be turning here, which is a more comfortable place to do this kind of turn, and then he can even get in a second turn possibly. But otherwise, I like a lot of what I'm seeing here. So also where he's dropping in, so see, it's not really giving him a lot of power. Like the wave has power here and the wave has power here, but not here. So he's not able to get up to speed, and he's not able to use the force of the wave to his advantage, to push that force into the wave ride, and to really, you know, use the power of the wave to ride the wave, which is what we want to be doing. So if you drop in here and do the turn here, then the wave is doing most of the work for you, which is what you want. So again, it comes down to wave placement. Wave placement is so important. Be on the right wave, be in the right place on the wave, and have the right timing on the wave. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you have the best technique in the world, but you're on the wrong wave, in the wrong place on the right wave, or even the wrong timing on the right place on the right wave, it's not going to work. So it's all about catching the right wave, being on the right place, and having the right timing. And it can really help to think about using the power of the wave to help you ride the wave. So again, here you want to be setting up where there's power, and in a place where that power can push you to somewhere else on the wave to do your turn, right? So if you're setting up here, that gives you the power to turn there. Whereas if you're setting up here, you're between the 2 points of power, and so you don't have as much power from the wave. So that again comes down to placement, and having more speed there will help keep a dynamic turn going. But I like this turn. This is a great setup for carving on a wave. Thanks, Paul, for sending in the video.
Sure.
We've got just a few minutes left. Paul, do you want to say a few tips or insights that you've realized through your wave sailing journey the last week that have helped you, or what have you noticed? What insights do you have that you can share to help people?
Yeah, so as I said before, like it's also like gaining the confidence, like also going over your fear, using everything you said is so right, like using the power of the wave is so important. And it's like also like not overthink everything, like it's going, like using the power of the wave, it's actually key, I think.
Yeah.
But for that you have to be really aware of your position, and your positioning, and you have to be aware where is the right positioning. So that was like a great example.
Were there any things that you were doing on the water to help you be aware?
Yeah, so actually like I'm watching, like from the beach, talking to you or to other guys, and then like seeing where, like even in small condition, like when the waves are small, you can really see where are the big sections usually are dropping in when the waves are bigger.
Right.
So, and then I try to, and I think that it's important, like in the beginning, and like one day you really be aware, like automatically, but to have that, how do you say, like key points at the beach, to be aware of your positioning, like, you know, like the light, like how do you say, like lighthouses, like
right,
the lighthouse at the beach, and to see, oh, okay, now I'm in that position, so the wave must break there anyway, because it breaks there anyway. So that helps me a lot. Watching other guys surfing, it's like really important. And speed, it's actually key. You know, like if you have that speed, it's so that's what I'm trying, like the last days.
The faster you go, the easier everything is. So you want to be on the place on the wave that will give you the most speed, and that is true of all wave sailing. All right, our time is coming to an end. We've just got a minute left. So thank you guys so much for joining and contributing to this conversation. I love we've got this community going where people are sharing their footage. I know that can be sensitive. So thank you everyone for having the confidence to send in your clips for review, and encourage other people too, because it really is the best way to improve. So if you have a friend who is trying to get better, get them to film themselves, send in their footage, and join the Facebook group. The link is in my profile. It's Graham Ezzy's Windsurf Coaching Community, and we'll do more coaching there throughout the week, more talk about how to windsurf better. Thanks for joining, and see you next week.
Cheerio.